it would feel weird not to do this, or it would feel weird to do this and not at least bring up like what's happened with Minneapolis in the aftermath of George Floyd being killed by a police officer, right? So if you haven't seen the video, which I'm sure most people have, it's, I mean, pretty fucking appalling. There's a police officer, kneeling on an African-American man's neck while he's telling you that he can't breathe. And before we even move on, like, if you watched that video and thought that somehow the officer was in the right, you're absolutely incorrect. There's no possible way to defend that. I mean, part of your job description as a police officer, I would imagine, at least, I don't have anything official pulled up in front of me, but you are going to expect to encounter people that are going to resist you. Shouldn't your job description be to have a level of, like, you should have some level of comprehension about how grappling and self-defense works? If you think that in this situation, when the guy is, I mean, clearly unarmed, clearly under control, several officers around, and you think the best way to control that situation, and you've analyzed all the threats around you and everything, and you still think the best way to control that man is to kneel on his neck while he's telling you you can't breathe, you should not be a fucking police officer. And this brings up, like, a bigger problem, and it makes all police officers look bad, when in reality, most police officers are doing good work. Most police officers are good people who are trying to make the world a better place and enforce laws, and they put their lives on the line. And I mean, like, it's not fair to lump them all into this one category. You do have to consider the fact that police officers are just fucking people, just like you or me. They go through the same things that we go through. They have opinions, they have biases, and they see things through their perspective and their lens only. That's it. They're all subject to being pieces of shit. We all are, right? But some of us are and some of us aren't. Like, some people just are. This guy is a piece of shit. There's no getting around it. Like, you get to see it carried out on camera. You get to see evidence of it, right? Okay, so I think everybody's on the same page that this guy deserves to be punished. I mean, it was clearly wrong. There's no way to defend it. Also, one thing that I kind of wanted to just touch on is, like, keep in mind when you're thinking about the looting and the rioting and you're talking about all that, right? Much in the same way that we shouldn't lump together all police officers into one category based on the actions of few or one, we shouldn't lump the whole Black Lives Matter movement into one category based off of the riots and the looting. Do you know what I mean? That's not fair, because that's a small portion of the movement and a small portion of the African American community they're not going through the proper channels, and they're not protesting correctly, and they're not going about it the right way. And unfortunately, that's what's getting media attention, and that's what we're shining light on. And I mean, is it wrong? Yes, it's not the right way to get your point across. But don't forget that despite what the media is giving attention to, there are African Americans all through Minneapolis and all over the country that are mourning and are feeling like their community is under attack in a way. And there are people who are going through the proper channels and protesting peacefully, and the light is just not getting shown on it. So again, much in the same way that we shouldn't judge an entire group, an entire movement, an entire anything based off the actions of few, we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be lumping in the whole Black Lives Matter community and saying, like, oh, I don't support, you guys lost me when you started looting. Well, the whole Black Lives Matter movement and the whole African American community didn't just start looting. Like, a small piece of it did, and they don't represent everybody else who's going about it correctly. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. Like, you can't let that fact, you can't let that dissuade you from caring about this or, like, you know, discussing it. It doesn't make any sense to do that. Next, the weird thing that starts happening when stuff like this always happens is that we always find a way to divide it somehow, right? So a lot of people are online and they're like supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And then the other half of people are commenting on it and saying, well, what about all lives matter? And I'm so tired, like, Black Lives Matter movement, blah, blah, blah. Like, doesn't everyone matter? Yeah, but the statement isn't only Black Lives Matter. They're just bringing attention to the fact that black people are being killed disproportionately for situations that afterwards the officers end up being mistaken, and none of that, like, it's like indefensible afterwards. Like, I mean, this is a perfect example. And I don't know how you look at it and go, well, you know, I bet if that was a black officer and he had killed a white man in that same fashion, nobody would react, like white people wouldn't react. Now, imagine if there was a pattern of that happening, not just an isolated incident, but a pattern like what's happening to black people right now. It's documented. It's all over the internet. Show me the videos of this happening to white kids. Show me them. They're non-existent. This is why the movement exists. It's not to say that you don't matter. And then you're viewing it the wrong way. You should view it like, okay, these people are feeling like they are subject to different judgment based simply on the color of their skin, right? And you can tell sometimes, like in certain situations when you see these videos, that the officers are approaching it with a different apprehension than they would a white person in that same situation. And these things that they thought were guns end up being like hairbrushes and stuff. It's like, again, humans are just prone to error. Like mistakes happen. And when you're a police officer in those situations, I understand that there's a lot of gray area. Not everything's black and white, but there are a lot of obvious ones, and none of the obvious ones seem to be happening to white people. I mean, I don't understand how you can look at that statement and try to twist it otherwise. You can pull some bullshit statistics up about how more white people are killed by police officers than black people every year, and that's true. But only like 130 more white people are killed by police every year than black people, right? This is according to a 2019 study on the Washington Post. And the numbers are about the same everywhere you look. So you look at race, and 370 white people were shot and killed by police in 2019. 235 black people were shot and killed. That is despite the fact that there are 63.1% more white people in America than black people, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And if you'll look at that, and then your next response will probably be, well, yeah, but a lot of those are probably happening in problem areas in like Detroit and stuff like that. Like that's probably where a lot of the killings are going down. And you're probably 100% right. But if you're willing to go that far, why aren't you willing to go a step further and go, where are all the white ghettos in America? We make up, what is it? It's like 76% of the population. Where are all the white ghettos? How is it that there are African Americans make up, it's estimated, between like 13 and 14% of the population in America right now? So the fact that they have more problem areas than white people and make up less of the population is, I don't know how you can't look at it and say, oh, there's definitely systemic racism. Maybe it's not on purpose, but we spend billions of dollars on war and all these other things, and we don't pump any money into making those neighborhoods better. Like, so it's crazy. It's crazy. So it definitely exists at that level. So I don't understand how, when these people are coming out and saying Black Lives Matter, I don't understand how you're taking it personally. I don't understand how you're not looking at all the data and realizing that they definitely are discriminated against on a very wide scale. It's crazy. Also, another fact, there are like 240, I'm estimating this one because I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I'll find the link and post it. There are like 240,000 white homeless Americans and about 220,000 black homeless Americans. And again, consider the fact that there's only 13 to 14%. African Americans only make up 13 to 14% of the total population in America. And they account for almost just as many homeless people. I mean, the numbers are skewed drastically. To pretend that stuff doesn't exist is crazy. You can't guarantee equality of opportunity, because you do need to reward people that work hard and are born. Naturally, people are going to be born in different circumstances. But shouldn't there be a fucking baseline? You're telling me that black people in Detroit and Chicago, and not that white people don't live in those places, I'm not saying that, but they're predominantly black. You're telling me that those people that live in those communities don't deserve some sort of baseline of opportunity to get out? It's like we're not paying attention to that's not a quality of life to me. Like that's not equality. Starting off that far behind is not equality. Growing up in neighborhoods like that where you're so likely to fall into gang violence is not opportunity. And I'm not saying that other demographics don't have it, but primarily the problem is with this shit going on. Okay, so again, I don't know how you can view the entire situation and then look at a Black Lives Matter movement and twist it somehow into saying that all lives matter. Obviously, all fucking lives matter. You know that's not what they're saying. They're looking at data and they're realizing that black people are being treated disproportionately according to the data. I mean, there's no denying it. It's science. Like it's documented.